Hello, and a warm welcome to another installment of my pots for sale at the Showplace in New York City. I have a group of 11 beautiful and very varied and interesting pots to show you today. I'm proud of each and every one of them. I hope that you will enjoy them as much as I do, and I'd like to show them to you in as much detail as I can. Of course, the still photographs will be available to them of them as always for closer inspection. But there's something about being able to turn them in 3 dimensions and make them be seen in every which way that gives them a little special oomph. And I enjoy talking about them, and I enjoy spending this time with you. This is the first pot that I have, and it is a glorious volcanic pot, sort of like the lava flowing out of Kilauea in Hawaii, with beautiful lavender and dark blue 3-dimensional volcanic glaze flowing over top of a scarlet red. All over it's iridescent, and it's a subtle iridescence, but the pot's got a lot of power. It recalls a little bit the work of Hugh Cornwall Robertson from the 19th century, whom I much admired for his oriental volcanic pots, but it's got my own little twist. There are mint greens, there are iridescent pinks. A very pretty piece, very nice looking, nice interior as well. Hopefully the camera is able to capture all of its nuances. Now, keeping in sort of a natural theme, as I mentioned in the past, and those who know me know, I'm very interested in all things natural history museum. You'll find me haunting the butterfly cage or the gems and minerals whenever I get an opportunity. And this is a piece based very loosely on the crystalline structure of iron pyrite, which is a really interesting structure of sort of like stacked cubes and triangles and such within itself. I sort of distilled the colors of that piece, and we have all of these floating iridescent yellow and yellow-orange, saffron, creamy white triangles and squares against a chocolate ground, all over iridescent, with floating squares and triangles and iridescent gold over top. It's a very dramatic piece, and I can tell you from the many hours that it took that there was no small effort was spared. This is going for the right person. This is going to have a lot of shelf power and interest, and I seldom put this much time into one individual pot. Actually, maybe I do, but it is a lovely thing nonetheless. Another really beautiful, serene pot. This is one of those examples where I would say, if you want one example of my work to add to your collection, just so that you've got one to add to all of your other things, you could not do better than to get this piece. It's got it all. It's a beautiful lapis ultramarine blue with floating orbs of antique gold interspersed in different sizes over it. They're joined with little rivers of iridescent gold linking one to another. Sort of in my mind's eye, I was trying for the idea of water molecules, which is something obviously we can't see, but floating in an iridescent space. Or it can be seen as something much larger, like planets or forming nebulae or something far out in space. The large writ small, the small writ large. It is a lovely, lovely piece. A copper interior. I might just keep this one for myself. There's another piece, sticking with the celestial theme, of flowing glaze, which is unusual for me. I've been doing these recently. This is a sort of a new innovation of mine. There's a very subtle iridescence and a deep craquelure overall. The piece is meant to be the colors of a beautiful autumn sunset, with an iridescent saffron orange, tangerine colors, sort of there are little traces of scarlet, all in down with a blue violet and a turquoise and sky blue flowing overall. Real pretty thing. All of these things were set up so that one would flow over another in the kiln, and then the iridescence just touches up at the most unexpected places around the rim and the interior, here and there within the piece. It makes for a lot of drama. The inside. This is one of these fortunate accidents of both design and the kiln, where a pot just comes out with no other word to apply but sublime. I love matte green, the matte green pots of the arts and crafts era, and I realize that they're much admired and understood by many of the people that are generous enough to collect my work. And this is my own sort of variation on it. They're beautiful matte greens, but they're matte greens and forest greens, turquoise, little touches of violet even, and amongst all of it, all interspersed with iridescent gold and iridescent matte gold, like a forest, like a I don't know. To me, it looks sort of like a beautiful park on a bright sunny day with the golden sunlight coming through the trees. This is just a perfect pot of its kind. The kiln was very generous to me that day, and the colors are melodious. They're pleasing and beautiful. That yellow blue green combination is always very happy when it comes, and this is as good a pot as of its type as I can make. Now, for those that are seeking a large, important piece of my work, this is a very substantial but very elegant pot. I've entitled the piece Celestial Highway. It's something on the order of 15 inches tall. And it's really a deep onyx black, blue, midnight blue, so deep as to be almost black, like an inky night with celestial flotsam or aurora borealis coming through, all these beautiful streaks of stars and constellations floating far and wide. This piece will just be a stunner in the middle of a mantle. It will stand proud amongst anything else that's done. I seldom make pots as large as this. This is at the top of the scale in terms of size, and it is an important piece. And it just sings. I think hopefully the camera can capture all these beautiful blue flows and copper flows that go in between the iridescent stars. I'll try turning it over so that the interior can be seen as well. There's a rich sort of ultraviolet flash that comes over the whole piece. This would look wonderful in a white room with a white mantelpiece, and as a background it could create an entire tone. It is a whole little universe in your hands. Continuing, we have another 5 wonderful pots to show you. I'm reminded of natural things right now as we're doing this taping. Outside, the wind is blowing up the beginnings of a hurricane from a long distance away, and I'm reminded I may like trees, but I don't want one coming through the windows. So hopefully we won't be interrupted in the course of this taping. This is another fine piece with a sparkling aventurine glaze in it, which is one which I seldom use, and I'm one of the few potters alive that continues to have that in his repertoire. It sort of depicts in a very abstracted way trees and foliage, which would be the dark brown glittering aventurine, through a delicate sort of gauzy morning sky. Very lovely piece. The glaze is quite thick. There's sort of a blue to a delicate blue to a delicate pink down to a delicate green, as if it were the ground. They almost look like flowing. I don't know. It's reminiscent to me a little bit of Newcomb College pottery, although not a copy, of course. But it sort of has that flavor to it. They look sort of like weeping willows. It's a pretty pot. It's a nice interior as well. A lot of iridescence on it, which hopefully the camera is being able to read. Another natural pot. I thought that I would try to depict in a very stylized way water lilies floating in a dark lake, in a dark lake, and there's a beautiful lapis dark iridescent dark blue flowing in between stylized water lilies in a very deep yellow green, each surrounded by rivulets of water, which would be sort of depicted in iridescent copper, in some cases gold. A lot of motion and interest in this piece. Nice harmony between the greens and blues. The next piece is a real showstopper, an absolutely dramatic fire orange silken matte in between lapis blue matte, sort of like a, this is a western sky like you'd see at the end of it, like you'd see at the end of a movie from the 50s. Sort of John Wayne going off into the sunset, or the cowboy of your choice. Roy Rogers and Dale Evans, maybe. There are streaks of iridescence running through the whole thing. It's sort of like a lifting storm. It's the kind of sky you could only see in Hollywood. It's a very powerful piece. Deep, rich, encrusted orange. Deep iridescence. Oh, that's a beauty. There aren't two of these on the planet. Another more personal pot, and it seems like all of these are of a natural bent. Sort of a beautiful kind of electric green over with little touches of lemon yellow. There's violet, there's dark blue. This was just a depiction of my spring lawn, looking at the beautiful wildflowers around the neighborhood as I went from place to place. I remember there were wild violets and forget-me-nots, and the grass is an electric green, is the color it truly is in Michigan at that time of year when it's fresh and new born. It's as green can be. So this is a lawn that you will never need to mow. Little touches of gold intermixed all throughout the piece. It's just very nice. It's very personal. Now we're going to conclude with a very important piece, which is for the right collector, is something that people have requested of me numerous times, and its like is not going to be seen again. This is the third iteration of my Alpha and Omega pots. This is there were three visions originally conceived, and this is the third and final complete vision. There will not be another. All of them are glazed differently and have slightly different form. But all of the Greek letters are hand cut and hand applied to the piece to make this interesting pattern. Thematically, philosophically, theologically, there are a lot of interesting things going on with this piece. Being an art history major, and that being a part of my background, I've always been interested and was well taught. I was taught by people that had the medievalist and Renaissance backgrounds, and we did a lot of looking at beautiful illuminated manuscripts from the Middle Ages. And they always stopped me in my tracks at the amount of labor that is involved in them and the beauty of the things. And that sort of gold writing on the early ones from the 11th, 12th centuries, the Book of Kells or the later Carolingian manuscripts. Actually, I think it's about the same time period. I'm not an expert in the field, so indulge me. But letters that are just beautiful in and of themselves, even if one doesn't know what the script reads. I'm also, as a potter, interested in a lot of the glorious Islamic pottery made in the Middle Ages, where the depiction is purely that of lettering, beautiful script and calligraphy, because of course there were prohibitions within the Islamic notion of art that prohibited the depiction of the human form and animals and such frequently. There are exceptions to that. Again, that's not my main area of expertise. But there are many instances where lettering is used purely as ornamentation, and in fact the people that wrote it didn't even know what they were writing. That oftentimes the letters are nonsense, that they're just depicted because they're beautiful. It has that kind of power to it. Of course, theologically, Alpha and Omega, the notion of that is in the Book of Revelation, and if somebody chooses to read that into it, it can. More than that, it's just the beginning and the end. I'm playing with a lot of different ideas here, and perhaps the ultimate the person who finds this as their ultimate possession will have meanings to it that I wouldn't have appended. In terms of the coloration, it's all over. The piece is all over a subtle iridescent gold, and there are sort of streaks. There are streaks of golden coming down, as if something is a sort of a celestial fire is raining down on the piece, and there's an aqua matte and aqua gloss in behind, which could be the sky. It's a little bit of a reference to Islamic pottery from the Middle Ages. This is a very complex, extremely labor-intensive, and hopefully very beautiful piece that belongs in a serious collection, and I hope that the right person will find it and appreciate it and subsequently have it for their very own. Well, that concludes our presentation for today. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I'm very happy with this group of pots. I'm sort of getting to see them all over again as I'm looking through them, and it's nice to do. I hope that you'll enjoy visiting us in the future. You're always very welcome to contact me. I can talk you through any of these pots in even more detail than I just did, and I'm never unhappy to hear from our patrons or our fans or our friends out in the world. So please come and visit us often and soon, and we will be seeing you as we travel from here and there across the country. Take care.